welcome to this event this evening. My name is Shant Kumar and I am the President of the Bangalore International Center. Just a minute ago, Ravi, the Honorary Director, asked me to introduce Vanamala to you, so I'm not going to say much. Mrs. Vanamala Viswanatha is, as you know, Professor of English, and she's right now, I think, with Designated University. She has, over the last couple of years, worked at translating Raghavanka's Harishchandra into English as a part of the Murthy Classical Library project. And I think this was published a year ago or so, 2 years ago. So with those few words, I'll ask Vanamala to please come on stage and take charge. Thank you very much.
Good evening, all of you. Thanks for making time and coming all the way. And thanks to BIC for this privilege of using their newest hall with their newest mic and with their newest audiences. So, feels good, doesn't it? So, I hope the rest of the journey is also as nice. I was thinking how to make a beginning with this presentation. I thought the best thing is to kind of take you all on board, because what listening to a classic, reading a classic means a kind of a transmigration to another time and place and sensibility. So welcome on board, ladies and gentlemen. This is your flight 298 and the destination is an hour from now, and have a safe flight. And let me begin with this. You know the story of Hanuman from Ramayana, who, when asked to bring one tiny mulika or herb which could cure Lakshmana, Rama's brother, who was lying dead, dying in a battlefield, and it had to happen just like that. He goes, it's a bit dark, he's not able to see clearly, and which of the herbs is this? So what does he do? In typical Hanuman style, brings the entire, mountain. And that's what translators have to do, because even when we're talking about a text, one text, it's always a matter of not just the text, but also the context, without which it will not make full sense. And it's not just the responsibility of Hanuman to bring, it's his responsibility to bring the text, to bring the mulika, but it's for the others to receive it and apply it properly, take it in the right doses, in the right manner, for the right disease. Right? Then the herb will have its effect. So I invite all of you to be active participants in this presentation, so that the text makes sense to you. Now, when we talk of Indian classics, it's been a tradition of rewriting, especially pre-modern works I'm talking about, not modern writing. Almost all pre-modern texts in the mainstream are takeoffs or rewritings of the two epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. And this particular text, Raghavanka's Harishchandra Kavya in Kannada, is, it recasts one of the Upakhyanas or Upa-akhyanas, the short stories that come along there. And Harishchandra narrative goes back to the Vedas, Puranas, and the Itihasas, which are Ramayana and Mahabharata. As you know, Harishchandra belongs to the same dynasty as Rama, the Ikshwaku dynasty. Therefore, there's a reference to Harishchandra way back in Ramayana as well. And the texts that really delineate the Harishchandra thematic in some depth and detail are Devi Bhagavata and Markandeya Purana. There are Sanskrit plays, a couple of Sanskrit plays, around the 12th century, 10th and 12th century. One is Harishchandra Natakam, the other is Chanda Kaushika. And these are the only two full-length texts which deal with the Harishchandra story. But Raghavanka's is the first text in any of the native Indian languages, right, in the vernacular Indian languages, that focuses entirely, in its entirety, on the Harishchandra story, and that too in the form of poetry. Right? That's why it is famously known as Harishchandra Kavya, because he nearly innovates a meter called Shatpadi, which is a 6-line meter, very, very strict in its structure. And within that metrical structure, he composes his entire poetry or poem. I don't know what to call it, Kavya. In fact, we had a nice fight, all of us in the team. How should we translate the title? Please translate Harishchandra Kavyam for me. You know what Kavyam is?
Story.
Kavya is not prose, Kavya is not story.
It's a kind of ballad, isn't it?
No. So can you say Harishchandra poetry? No. Can you say the poetry of Harishchandra? No. The poem of Harishchandra? Long, such a big book, how can you call it a poem? Because in our mind, poem is always something very short. So, the epic of Harishchandra, but technically, while Ramayana and Mahabharata can be called epics with that kind of a canvas, this is more like heroic poetry. So technically it may not qualify, but epic is close enough to what we could translate it as. But epic is still not always Kavyam. It could be a mixture of prose and poetry and so on. Therefore, then Raghavanka himself came to our rescue, and he had called it Harishchandra Charitra. So Charitra is a story, life story. Therefore, we said, okay, then why don't we call it The Life of Harishchandra, right? So that's how the title in English came about. So, moving on, as I said, most of our writing in vernacular literatures in pre-modern times have been rewriting. And here also, this is a rewritten version. There are quite a few differences between the original Harishchandra story. The story keeps evolving depending on who is recreating it. And what we have here is a Kannada Harishchandra. It's almost like a Kannada, king speaking when you hear the Kannada version. So you will see that in this presentation, you will be listening to the Kannada text, not just the, it is localized also in several other ways. One is, like while the main story happens in Ayodhya and Varanasi, in one scene you have Raghavanka bring Harishchandra right down to Hampi, right, to get a view of, darshan of his guru, right? Therefore, there is that as well. So in several ways, and many of the 13th century, which is when Raghavanka was writing, some of the concerns, debates, and quarrels of his time, they are represented, they get represented in the text. So that way it's a version of Harishchandra, but a very typical Kannada version. And when one translates, one has to think about which text to translate. It's a very important decision for a translator, because it has to fulfill several criteria, right? Now, it has to have, it should be culturally important, it should be seen as a classic, then it should have literary merit, and when you're translating, it is best to have a good storyline, because if nothing else, at least the story translates. So the story can travel across borders of time and place. therefore, it's an important decision to have not just a descriptive kind of thing, but also where there's a strong storyline. And then style should be interesting, it should have aesthetic appeal, and some form of, there should be a common human ground that it covers, so that some kind of universal appeal should be there. Then, the text is likely to become more of a success in the other language as well. And of course, there are pragmatic considerations. The best of Kannada is that, Kumar Vyasa's Mahabharata, for instance, has 8,500, verses. I mean, as a first-time classic translator, one doesn't have the daring to get into something like that. So I thought, let me, choose a middle-of-the-road kind of text, so that, I'll be able to do it. And therefore, and now 5 translators together have joined, and they're trying to translate Kumar Vyasa, that 8,500 verse long text. So that's what I mean by pragmatic consideration. Now, when one is translating, we also have to see what kind of choices do we have. Can we do just an extract? Can we just do a summary? Or can we do a Sarala Mahabharata, like, a Sarala Harishchandra, where you simplify, the story and convey it in terms that are easy to, digest. The Murthy Classical Library of India, which has published the book, they have a guideline, and their preference was that we translate a text in full. Therefore, I said, okay, that's fine, let's do this text in full, without any omission, because most of the versions in Kannada itself, which came subsequent to Raghavanka, have left out several chapters. For instance, chapter 4, which is all about the description of a brothel, for instance, people have found it irrelevant to the main story, so it's left out. But I invite you to read that particular chapter, and the book is outside available, it's on sale. So just to get a sense of, not for any salacious descriptions or anything, but just to get the sociology of the time. What was it like? What did they go through? What are the different aspects of their life? And seen from the outside, because the king is kind of doing a round of the area. So it's a very interesting, fascinating account. Same with the hunting chapter, the whole chapter on hunting, chapter 5 and 6. Chapter 6, if you ask me, is the most riveting part of the whole text. Because it's a wild boar being chased, and how dramatically the chase happens. It's like watching a film today, following the camera up close. It's that crisp and that vivid. Okay. Therefore, we would miss all these things if we leave out these chapters as irrelevant to the concerns of the story. Therefore, when I started translating, the text itself showed me the way about how to translate it. So what is in the original just Kavya, that is in poetic verses. In most places the narrative has taken a prose form, because that's what the guidelines said. They had tried getting people to translate poetry as poetry, and it was not communicating too well. So the brief was that one has to translate it into prose. So initially, the first draft I did everything as prose. But then I said, what a pity that Raghavanka's poetry is not happening in the English. So then I said, okay, a few of these verses, maybe can we try the chanting the verses in as poetry? Sent some 10 out and said, they said, this is nice. And I said, what about these lyrical passages? Can we do this as poetry? And they said, yes. Hey, what about this very dramatic, high moment, emotional thing? Okay. So, like that, a few, nearly 100, 120 verses out of 720 got into the more poetic kind of a mode. And this is a text of high drama. And Raghavanka is a great playwright. He should have actually written it as a play. Is my submission, because it is highly dramatic. And therefore, a lot of dialogues packed in just one 6-liner. There is enough stuff to write it out as a 14-turn dialogue, right? Therefore, that's how packed the poetry is. So I laid it out in the form of a dialogue. So now the text has 3 forms: narrative prose, lyrical poems, and dramatic dialogues. That way the spirit of the story is represented in 3 different forms. Okay. Raghavanka, around 1225 CE, that's the date. Then he's an important Veera Shaiva. I put Veera in brackets because it's a big controversy today, so we won't go there. And from Hampi, the northern Karnataka. And he came about 50 to 75 years after the 12th century social reform movement of Basavanna, which was an anti-caste movement, which ended in a lot of bloodshed and violence. So he was coming after that. So you find echoes of Basavanna also in his writing, but at the same time, an impulse to conform. So he's a kind of a very interesting figure who has come after a revolution was contained. Right? He couldn't have written it like he could have 100 years earlier. After Basavanna, he couldn't have gone back to 11th century and write in that way. And yet he couldn't have continued to write like Basava because it was too dangerous and so on. And also he called himself a Pandita Kavi. He was an erudite. He was very proud of his Sanskrit erudition and so on. So he wanted to continue with the Kavya tradition, imbuing it with a lot of local color, local rhythms, proverbs, spoken forms, etc., etc. So he's a writer or author of 6 texts, including this, out of which only 3 other texts are available, and so I'll skip that detail. Then over the 800 years or so, it has there have been several rewritings of the text itself in other genres, like Sangatya, as drama, as Yakshagana performance, and it has this text has been kept alive through the performance tradition in Karnataka. Therefore, what you find, especially the Gamaka tradition, Gamaka is the presentation of poetry in using classical ragas, that suit the bhava or the spirit, the mood, the sentiment that's expressed in the particular verse. Okay. Therefore, even with non-literate audiences, this is a text that people have carried in their hearts because of the performance tradition. And therefore I thought today I would, I'm a student of Gamaka, I'm not an expert in Gamaka, but just to give you an idea of how it gets presented in Gamaka sessions, I thought I would present a few of these verses, as and when I go on with the story through song. Okay? Now, this is Harishchandra is a text which played a big role in Gandhi's life, and how and why Gandhi made truth his central, principle of his philosophy, of his action, of his politics. He saw this play when he was 8 or 9, Harishchandra Natak, and he couldn't stop crying. And he wondered, why is it that people cannot speak the truth all the time? Right? Why is it so difficult for people? Why can't everybody be like Harishchandra and so on? Okay. So, and it was made into the very first Indian film was based on this play. Falke's Raja Harishchandra. And for Kannada people, there is only one Harishchandra, and that is Dr. Rajkumar. You know, the way he could deliver the dialogues of Harishchandra from the gut, you know, there is nobody who can beat that. So, this, and they even reissued it in color, which means it tells you how popular it must be, even to this day. Okay? Just a quick line about the theme. It's a long narrative poem that tells the riveting tale of the dispossession of King Harishchandra because he stood for the truth. And any other value which clashed with it would have to go. Right? Truth was paramount in his life. Even if it means hardship for people around him, it was still an absolute value. Right? Then I have already talked about this. Then the text has 728 verses in the edition that I have chosen, and it's spread over 14 chapters. And the dominant rasa, or the emotional essence of the poetry, is karuna. Karuna is compassion, sympathy, empathy, whatever, right? Now, how does the karuna rasa get generated in the poem? This 14 chapters, it's like very architectonically arranged. One half you find, traces the power, the glory, and the might of this King Harishchandra. His handsomeness, the reach of his kingdom, his magnanimity, the power of his army, you name it, and his control over the forest and the Nagara, the city, right? Everything that man, the human, can achieve, he had achieved, right? So the zenith of civilization, man-made, human-created world. And then, after that, there is an inversion, right? One by one, the land he commanded is out of his hands. So completely out of his hands that he cannot find even a small place that much to cremate his own son, dead son, right? That is the extent. And then while here he is the lord of the forest in the first half, in the second half he is chased by forest fires, right? And he has to scramble for life, right? So everything is reversed. Right? And in the last part he is sitting at the feet of a Chandala, and that's a word he uses. Chandala is this person from the lower caste who is in charge of the crematorium, burning guard, as it were. And so he has to sit at his feet. So that is a kind of inversion that you're talking about. And Shiva, he is a devotee of Shiva. And Shiva, who is worshipped by him in the first half with all the power and pelf he is capable of, does not come in the first half. He shows his devotee his face only at the end, when Harishchandra's pride and arrogance, especially caste arrogance, as a Kshatriya, that is completely subdued. And that's when Shiva makes an appearance, right? So, it's like God saying, I'm with the poor, and unless you become vulnerable, unless you become poor, I'm not with you. That seems to be the kind of an inversion that the text seems to project. Okay. I invite you to read this for yourself, because look at the economy with which The 300-page Kavya has been summarized by the poet himself. You know what this is? So, that's where he belonged. And therefore, the opening verse, for his Ishtadeva, for his favorite deity, is Hampi's Virupaksha, right? Divine Pampapati, Lord of Hampi, who has lent elegance to Vishnu, Lord of Shri, wisdom to Brahma, Lord of Vanu, bliss to Indra, Lord of Lords, brilliance to the sun, Lord of the sky, serenity to the moon, Lord of stars, enthralling beauty to Madana, Lord of Rati, dignity of depths to the ocean, Lord of rivers, and radiance to fire, Lord of Swaha. May it please Venerable Virupaksha to grant us our wishes. Right? That's the opening verse. And in the Kannada, this is how it goes. ಶ್ರೀಪತಿಗೆ ಸೊಬಗನು ಉಡುಪತಿಗೆ ಶಾಂತಿಯನು ವಾಣಿಪತಿಗೆ ಚಾತುರ್ಯಮಂ ದಿವಸ್ಪತಿಗೆ ಪ್ರತಾಪಮಂ ಸುರಪತಿಗೆ ಭೋಗಮಂ ರತಿಪತಿಗೆ ಮೂಲೋಕವಾವರಿಸುವ ರೂಪಂ ಸರಿಪತಿಗೆ ಗಂಭೀರತೆಯನು ಸ್ವಾಹಾಪತಿಗೆ ತೇಜಮಂ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಗುರುಮೂರ್ತಿ ಪಂಪಾಪತಿ ವಿರೂಪಾಕ್ಷನು ಯಮಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಸಿದ್ಧಿಯಂ ಮಾರ್ಕೆ ಸಂತೋಷದಿಂದ storyline. But who reads classics for the storyline? Right? It's how the story is told. It's in the telling that the story comes alive. So, here is a description of, I told you about hunting scene. So he's invited a whole host of hunters to come and assist him in hunting these animals, which are which have become a menace to the crops in his field, in the fields of the kingdom. And people have come running to him seeking his protection. So there he goes. So they come with all their different equipment, right? So here is a list of some 27 kinds of nets, different kinds of nets to catch animals. How can you make poetry with a list of nets? Right. But here it is. ತಡಿಕೆ ವಲೆ, ತಟ್ಟಿ ವಲೆ, ಹಾಸು ವಲೆ, ಬೀಸು ವಲೆ, ಕೊಡತಿ ವಲೆ, ಕೋಲು ವಲೆ, ತಳ್ಳಿವಲೆ ಬಳ್ಳಿವಲೆ ತೊಡಕುವಲೆ ತೋರುವಲೆ ತಟ್ಟಿವಲೆ ಗೂಟವಲೆ ಕಣ್ಣಿವಲೆ ಕಾಲುವಲೆಯ ಸಿಡಿವವಲೆ ಸಿಲುಕುವಲೆ ಹಾರುವಲೆ ಜಾರುವಲೆ ಬಡಿಗೆ ವಲೆ ಬಾಚುವಲೆ ಗಾಢವಲೆ ಗೂಢವಲೆ ಮಡಿಕೆ ವಲೆ ಮಂದಸನ ವಲೆಯ ಹೊರೆಗಳ ಬೇಡವಡ ನೆರೆದ ನೇನೆಂಬಿನು. How do you do a translation out of this? Right? How do I describe this assembly of hunters and an array of nets, baskets, sieves and meshes, bamboo nets and reed nets, catching nets and snatching nets, thin wiring nets and tight long nets, tripping nets and trapping nets, sifting nets and stuff-on nets, binding nets and slipping nets, nets for the leg and nets for the crest, expanding nets and baiting nets, nets slung in air and nets spread on earth, recoiling nets and stretching nets, open nets and concealed nets. Right? So, there you go. That's one kind of So, if you think you have sorted out one list, another list doesn't, work. The same strategy doesn't work with another list. Okay? Here is a description of flowers, right? Different kinds of flowers. Look at how well the textured it is. I will skip the Kannada and just do the English. Sorry. Can we just do a little bit of this? Okay. No, I'm fine. It's a bit too to the edge and that. I'm aware of that, so okay. For the king's worship, the young women gathered the choicest flowers. Flowers not quite green, not quite white, not quite red. Flowers not quite open, their petals not quite visible. Flowers with their inner body intact, their outer petals. Flowers not too unfolded, their inner petals not too shut. Flowers untouched by sunlight and untrodden by bees, unshaken by wind and unbitten by frost. Flowers not single or entangled with other flowers. Right? So, Kannada also? Okay. No, I'm doing the wrong thing. Idada, hasuri, this is the Kannada version. Idada, hasuridada, ಕೌರಿಡದ ಬೆಳುಪಿಡದ ಕೆಂಪಿಡದ ಬಿಸುಪಿಡದ ಚಿಪ್ಪರಳದ ಎಸೆಲೊಡೆಯದ ಒಳಗುಡುಗಿರದ ಕುಡಿ ಮುರುಟಿ ಕೆಳಹಿಗ್ಗ ತೋರಂತೆ ಬಿಸಿಲು ನೆಳಲಾವರಿಸದ ಅಡಿಗಳಿಂದ ಅಳಿ ತುಳಿಯದ ಅನಿಲ ನಲುಗದ ಮಂಜು ಹೊಡೆಯದ ಏಕಾಕಿಯಾಗಿರದ ಅನ್ಯ ಕುಸುಮದೊಳು ತೊಡರದ ಅರೆ ಬೇರಿದ ಅರಲ ನಾಯ್ದಾಯ್ದು ತಿರಿದರ್ ಅಂದವನಿಪನ ಶಿವಪೂಜೆಗೆ. That's it. Okay. Now, this is a googly. Okay. Again, a description of the forest. This is more in the very Sanskritic kind of tradition. As I said, he was a Pandit poet. He was very proud of his erudition. How is the forest? Sale Shivamayam, Shivamayam, Shivamayam. ಸಮುಜ್ವಲ ಶಿಖಿಮಯಂ 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 ನಿರಾಕುಲ ಶುಕಮಯಂ 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 ಗಿರಿಯ ಸಾನುವಿನಿಂದ ಒಸರ್ದು ಪರಿವ ಜಲ ಹರಿಮಯಂ 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 ಮೃಗಾಕುಲ ಮಧುಮಯಂ 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 ಶಬರಬಲ ಬಾಣಮಯ ಬಾಣಮಯ ಬಾಣಮಯವಾಗಿ ಕಾನನಂ ಕಣ್ಗೆಸೆದುದು. Right? So I said, what a beauty. But then, how are you going to recreate this beauty? Okay, it's all very well to appreciate. Then I said, okay, what is making it beautiful? Okay, it's chant-like quality. Shivamayam, Shiva, Okay, which means I have to repeat. Then I met, I used to consult Kannada Pandit just to make sure that I got my meanings right. So when I went to Professor Venkatachal Shastri in Mysore, he said, Nodamma, al chamatkara ide, kanista? There is a trick there. Huh? Did you see that? They said, oh, yeah, I know, chanting, repetition. Not that. There are 3 Shivas, right? 3 Shivas have 3 different meanings. Have you checked the meaning of Shiva? Quickly ran and checked. 32 meanings. So which meaning should I take? Then he said, yeah. So you have to take, he is trying to say how versatile, how diverse the forest is. Therefore you have to select 3 meanings which are as far apart from one another. And yet they should all be relevant to the context of the description of a forest. I said, this is too much, That's when I wanted to give up. But one doesn't give up. So this is what I tried to do. I retained the Sanskrit words, the original Kannada words also, and then gave the meanings, gave the 3 meanings. For instance, the forest was soaked in a special ambience. Shivamayam, 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 suffused with water, grass and banyan tree. Shikimayam, 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 replete with peacocks, fires and venomous snakes, and so on and so forth. Right? Therefore, enough of bragging, let's move on. So, when you're doing poetry, or especially pre-modern poetry, alliterations are killing, right? So, how do you do this? And it's the description of wildfire, okay, which is coming at them like that. Okay. ಕುತ್ತುರಾಗಿರ್ದ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆಳೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸುಡುತ್ತ ಬಳವೆತ್ತ ಬೆಟ್ಟವ ಸೀಳ್ದು ಸೆಕ್ಕೆಗಳೆವತ್ತ ಪಡುವೆತ್ತ ನೆಲನಂ ಕರಿಕುವರಿಸುತ್ತ ಬೆಳೆದ ಮರದಿಡುಕುರುಳು ನಿಂದುರುಗುತ್ತ ಹತ್ತುತ್ತ ಹೊಗೆಯುತ್ತ ಹಬ್ಬುತ್ತ ಹರಿದು ನೆಗೆಯುತ್ತ. Can you feel yourself choking? ಹತ್ತುತ್ತ ಹೊಗೆಯುತ್ತ ಹಬ್ಬುತ್ತ ಹರಿದು ನೆಗೆಯುತ್ತ ಗಗನವನ್ನು ತುಡುಕುತ್ತ ಮತ್ತಂತಡಿಸಿ ಸುತ್ತ ಮುತ್ತಿತ್ತು ದವಾನಳನು ಅಸತ್ಯ ಕಾಂತಾರ ದವಾನಳನನು. So this ಹೊತ್ತುತ್ತ how can I get her in English? What kind of alliteration might work? Thought and thought. Then came up with this. Burning down thick clumps of bamboo, cleaving through mighty mountains, their wings severed, blackening the ground overgrown with thick shrubs, and blowing through hollows of gigantic trees. The fire blazed through the forest, searing and smoking and sizzling and spiraling, soaring to the skies and scattering, striking from every side. The forest fire enveloped Harishchandra, himself a fire to the forest of untruth. Right? So, one had to kind of shift the very sound itself to create a different alliteration is the effect, but the mode through which you get there could be different. Okay. So, sorry. Now I get back to the story part. A bit of the story. How much time do I have, Sattar? When I have 5 more minutes, you should tell me.
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. As I said, the story begins with 2 sages, Vasishtha, who is the Purohit for the Ikshvaku dynasty, and Vishwanatha getting into waging, they get into a wager about, Indra once asks, which of the kings on earth are known to be truth speakers? Because kings by definition are liars. So is there a king at all who speaks the truth? Vasishtha says, of course, there is Harishchandra. So Vishwamitra says, how can you say it? Even the Vedas vouch for his lying. So he says, don't mention all that. You can take a bet with me. You put him through any kind of trial, he'll come through and he'll hold on to truth. Is Vasishta's wager. So what if I prove you false? Then Vishwamitra says, Vasishta says, I'll give up my punya, my merit, acquired through eons of penance, And Vishwamitra says, yes, me too, So they take. So because of these two people's pastime, it's Harishchandra who has to take the blame. So there are a whole series of steps through which Vishwamitra plans to corner him, right? So the first thing he does is to create this menace, and so people come, and then he creates a wild boar, and the wild boar manages to escape all these hunters and even Harishchandra, and draws him into Vishwamitra's guru ashram, right? And Vasishta would have slightly given a veiled warning to Harishchandra: do whatever you want, but don't go into his ashram because you'll be caught. And that is just what the wild boar does. So he's in the ashram, and Vishwamitra says, you have transgressed into my thing, so what are you going to do, etc., etc. So then there is, there are several such, situations through which Vishwamitra is trying to catch hold of Harishchandra. And one such is, he creates two maidens, who are young women, very attractive, and he says, go and entice Harishchandra, and somehow get him to. Now, these two women are not just two ordinary women, but they belong to the Holaya caste. Holaya is the Kannada word for the untouchable caste. Okay? I'll just skip all this. He is now in my hands, says Vishwamitra. And so from this crashing roar emerged two maidens. How did they look? Were they daughters of the dark night, come to meet the rising day? Were they water nymphs darkened by venom from the ocean, churned by gods and demons, assuming human form? Were they statues of dark blue crystals sculpted by lotus-born Brahma, springing to life? The dark beauties accosted the Lord of the earth, as sensuous as it can get. Okay? So, I'm going to give it a miss. If there's time, we'll come back to this. This is one place where I thought I did slightly better than Raghavanka. Okay? So, I'll skip that. So, what they do is, he's very tired after the hunt. He's resting. They come and dance and sing for him. And then he's very pleased. He gives them all the jewels as inam. But they say, what use is an elephant when one is poor? What use is ghee when one is thirsty? What use is ravishing Rambha when one is writhing in pain? What use is the kingdom of earth when one is dying? What use are jewels and applause when one is burning from a sunstroke? Tell us, O Lord of the earth. Instead, if you gifted a coracle to a drowning man, gold jewelry to a poor man, and ambrosia to a sick man, imagine how overjoyed they would be. Likewise, as the searing sun strikes down mercilessly, roasting us alive, our tongues parched, we are fatigued and fainting. Give us your white royal umbrella and save our lives, Your Majesty. He said, don't you know, you can't ask for my royal umbrella, it's my insignia. Without it, it's my identity. Please don't ask for that. Then they say, okay, marry us. What are you saying? Huh? You two Holatis want to come and say, propose to me, saying I should be, marry you? How dare you? So, how dare you ask me this question? You being the untouchable people, right? Then they ask, What is so pure about the flesh of the udders that yield holy milk? What is so pure about the bee that makes such sweet honey? What is so pure about the deer's bowels that yield fragrant musk? Are they all not sacred enough to be used in worship? Are there any vices impossible to overcome in the company of the virtues? When you have such beauty and such youthfulness before you, why talk of caste or clan, your majesty? They try some nakra also, but I'll skip this song and move on. Then Harishchandra says, why indeed? Though gutter water may be filtered, is it fit for bathing? Look at that. This kind of a dialogue between, truth, speaking truth to power, right? Though gutter water may be filtered, is it fit for bathing? This is Harishchandra to them. Though a dog may have milk, is it fit for consumption? Though a flower may grow in a haunted burial ground, is it fit for adorning the hair? When you are born Holathis, who would want to enjoy your youthful exuberance, beautiful figure, or bright mind? Shiva Shiva, the very thought is defiling. Being argumentative Indians, they say, aha, the ears that enjoyed every note of our music are not defiled. The eyes that feasted on our shapely forms are not defiled. The mouth that acclaimed our art is not defiled. The nose that smelled the fragrance of our bodies wafted by the gentle wind is not defiled. How is it that only our touch is defiling? How is it that among the 5 composite senses, one is superior and the other 4 inferior? Right? They ask in Kannada. ಹಾಡನೊಲಿದಾಲಿಸಿದ ಕಿವಿಗೆ ಹೊಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಹೊಗಳಿದ ಬಾಯಿಗೆ ಹೊಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ರೂಪನೆರೆ ನೋಡಿದ ವಿಲೋಚನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೊಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮೇಮುಡಿಗಳಿಂ ಸುಳಿವ ತಂಗಾಳಿಂ ತೀಡುವ ಸುಗಂಧಮಂ ವಾಸಿಸಿದ ನಾಸಿಕಕ್ಕೆ ನಾಡೆ ಹೊಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಕೂಡಿರ್ದ ಸೋಂಕಿಂಗೆ ಹೊಲೆಯುಂಟಾಯ್ತೆ, ಕೂಡಿರ್ದ ಪಂಚೇಂದ್ರಿಯಂಗಳು 4 ಅಧಮವೇ 1 ಅಧಿಕವೇ ಎಂದರು. So, such questioning cannot have answers, right? So what does he do? He beats them up and chases them away. And they go back to Vishwamitra and says all these things. Okay. And then comes another point. I think I'll give this also a miss because we don't have too much time. And this is how he loses his kingdom to Vishwamitra in one of those moments, and so the people are very sad to let go of him. And this is a famous poem, verse from the text. Can I just sing this?
Yes.
Okay, this is the text which I invite you to read. And the singing in Kannada. So the people are wailing and saying tearful farewells to their king. ಪುರದ ಪುಣ್ಯಂ ಪುರುಷರೂಪಿಂದೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತಿದೆ, ಪರಿಜನದ ಭಾಗ್ಯವು ಅಡವಿಗೆ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತಿದೆ, ಶರಧಿ ಪರಿವೃತ ಧರೆಯ ಸಿರಿಯ ಸೊಬಗು ಅಜ್ಞಾತವಾಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ಕೋ, ಎರೆಮದೀನಾನಾಥರಾನಂದವು ಅಡಗುತ್ತಿದೆ. ಸಂಗವೆಂದೊಂದಾಗಿ ಬಂದು ಸಂಧಿಸಿ ನಿಂದ ಮಂದಿ ನೆರೆ ಮೊರೆ ಇಟ್ಟುದೋ. Okay. So, at another point in the story, this is not a very connected story. I don't want to tell you the whole story in all its details because I want you to buy the book. Okay. So, at another point in the story, this is also one of the tests that the husband and wife are separated. The queen and her young son are slaves now in a household, and the young son is sent to the forest to collect firewood, and a snake bites him and he dies. And when she comes to the forest looking for him, she finds his body. And look how finely, Raghavanka depicts the mother and her grief. For the mother, the child is part of her body, right? Therefore, when she finds the dead body there, she wants to really see if there's any life left in the body. She looked eagerly for breath in the nostrils, air in the lungs, white in the eyes, sweat on the forehead, beating of the chest, trembling of the knuckles, quivering in the throat, sensation in the fingertips, some heat in the soles of the feet, some color in the nails, some pink in the toes, some pain in the limbs, some sheen in the hair, some softness on the tongue. It finally dawned on her. All life had ebbed out of her son's body. And then the woman broke down, inconsolable. Okay? And in the Kannada, this is how it is. ಲಾಲನೆ ಮೂಗಿನೊಳು ಉಸುರನು ಹಳ್ಳೆಯೊಳು ಹೊಯ್ಲನೋ ಉಗುರೊಳು ರಜವನೋ ಎದೆಯೊಳಲ್ಲಾಟಮಂ ಕೈಯ ಮೊದಲೊಳು ಮಿಡುಕನು ಅಂಗದೊಳು ನೋವನು ಅಕ್ಷಿಯೊಳು ಬೆಳ್ಪಂ ಭಾಳದೊಳು ಬೆವರನು ಲಲಿತ ಕಂಠದೋಳು ಲುಕನು ಅಂಗ್ರಿಯೊಳು ಬಿಸಿಯನು ಅಂಗುಲಿಗಳೊಳು ಚಿಟುಕನು ಉಂಗುಟದೊಳರುಣಾಂಬುವಂ ಸಲೆನಾಲಗೆಯೊಳಿಂಪ ರೋಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಲ್ಪನಾರೈದು ಕಾಣದೆ ನೊಂದಳು. So, okay, I'll skip this because this is also another nice one where it's very kind of dramatic, See, she brings the dead body because she doesn't to the looking for a burning cart. But who is the watchman in the burning cart? Harishchandra, right? He would have come to that stage now in his journey where to return some monies he has borrowed, he becomes a slave with the Chandala who's guarding the burning cart. And his orders are that without, like a piece of cloth that's on the dead body and rice and one coin. Without it, he cannot allow anybody to use the burning cart. But she doesn't have anything, Chandra, that's a wife. So she begs him, please allow me to cremate my son, because I really don't have anything. He said, no, my orders are my orders. I have given my word to my master. So she says, look at this, look at the irony of this. His father was the emperor of this holy, kingdom. And for his son, there's not even this much space. This is how she laments. Okay? Vigata saptadvipapatiya basurai bandu magane ninage ommettu sudugaadu hageyaite mige sakala lokadolu tannade saluvana kumaranenisuva ninnanu bageyade ಈ ಚಾಂಡಾಲನಾಣೆ ಇಡುವಂತಾಯ್ತೆ ಜಗದ ನವನಿಧಿ ಗೊಡೆಯನಾತ್ಮಭವನಿನಿಸಿ ಮುಟ್ಟಿಗೆಯ ಸೂಕದ ಹಾಗವೆಲ್ಲಾಯ್ತೆ ಮಗನೇ ಮಗನೇ ಎಂದಳಲಿದಳು ಹಂಬಲಿಸುತ್ತಾ. Okay. Look at how Raghavanka depicts the father's agony. Father, king, kshatriya. So for him, he reasoned with his dead son. You died not fighting worthy enemies in battle, nor protecting the fire rituals of spiritual seekers, not in the cause of the divine, nor by severing your body parts to donate them to worthy seekers. Is it fair to die like this for no reason at all, bitten by a lowly reptile, inviting the ridicule of adversaries? Tell me, my little one. So, very different in tone and tenor from the mother's, grieving. So, it was not meant to be like this, but please adjust. I wanted to set it right, no time. Okay. ಹರಿರಾಯರುಳು ಕಾದಿ ಮಡಿದಾತನಲ್ಲ, ಮುನಿವರರ ಯಾಗವ ಕಾಯ್ದು ಮಡಿದಾತನಲ್ಲ, ದೇವರಿಗೆ ಹಿತವಾಗಿ ಮಡಿದವನಲ್ಲ, ಮಾಂಸದಾನವ ಬೇಡಿದರ್ಗೆ ಒಡಲ ನರಿದರಿದು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಮಡಿದವನಲ್ಲ, ಹುಳ್ಳಿಯಂತರ ಹೋಗಿ ಕಾಡೊಳಗೆ ಬಡಹಾವು ಕಚ್ಚಿ ಮುನಿವರಿಗೆ ನಗೆಗೆಡೆಯಾಗಿ ನಿಷ್ಕಾರಣಂ ಮಡಿವರೇ ಕಂದ ಹೇಳು ಎಂದನು. ನಿಷ್ಕಾರಣ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ death is death, but for him it should have been a veera marana, you see. So anyway, so we are coming to the end of this narrative and the last two stanzas. So as I said, the wife, Queen Chandramati, is implicated in a murder she has not committed, and she is brought to the Vadhasthana, which is the hanging place. And who is the hangman? Of course, it is a Harishchandra. You see, because it's part of his extended duty as the guard. And he doesn't realize it is her. And so somebody is brought. So his orders are to behead her. So he says, okay, woman, are you ready? I'm going to bring down my sword on you. So if you have a last minute prayer, say it. So she says, okay, I'll sing the Kannada first. She just says, in a very calm, cool, completely come to terms with her own death, because the child has gone, the husband has become a Chandala. She says, there's no more point in my living. So it's a very peaceful acceptance of death. And then she kind of speaks out what her last wish is. Her last wish is that her husband should prosper, the son should come back to life, the minister should prosper, should thrive, and the present king of the country, of the kingdom, Vishwamitra, should thrive too. Right? That's her magnanimity. So this is how it goes. Balida Padmasanam Mugidakshi Muchidanjali Merasi Guru Vasishtangeragi Shivana Nirmala Rupa Nenedo Melam Tirugi Nodi Bhu Chandra Arkatarambaram Kai Harishchandra Rayam Satyavarasi Balali Magam Muktanagali Mantri Nenedudagali Rajyadodeya Vishwamitra Nityanagali Rajyadodeya Vishwamitra Nityanagali Harake. That's it. Then he realizes who it is and he just jumps up. What kind of fate is this? What kind of play of fate? But even in the face of that kind of a fateful play, he says, I have given my word that I will obey my master. That is the truth. Therefore, I shall stand by that. And he's about to lift his, he lifts his sword and he's about to hit her on the neck, when at the edge of the sword is God. Sometimes one wishes that could happen now too, but there it is. So, then the last part of the story, where none other than Lord Shiva himself upholds, holds up Harishchandra and what he stood for, and he says, Lord Shiva, just a leading to this is, Harishchandra is very humbled to see Lord Shiva. He says, I waited for you with my entire kingdom, and I was happy, all the wealth I had, but you never came. Look at me now, I'm in this Holaya dress, Chandala, I'm dirty, I'm defiled, and here you are trying to hug me, Shiva. So he's feeling a little like that. So Shiva says, Lord Shiva comforted the king, stroking his head. A sage who lies is a Holaya. A Holaya who does not lie is a noble sage. So, there's a redefinition of caste. It's not that caste comes to you by birth. One is born here and the other is born there, right? Caste is a matter of gaining working for it, deserving it through your actions by speaking the truth. A sage who lies is a holeya who does not lie is a noble sage. 100 fire sacrifices tainted by a single lie amounts to committing the 5 deadly sins. Truth and justice coming together make for the worship of the linga. This is the essence of the Vedas, and this is my command. Where would we find another man on earth as truthful as you? So in the Kannada, Ati husiva yati holeya, Ati husiva yati holeya, Husiyadiha holeya nunnatayati varano, Ati husiva yati holeya, Husiyadiha holeya nunnatayati varano, ಹುಸಿದು ಮಾಡುವ ಮಹಾಯಜ್ಞ ಶತವೈದೆ ಪಂಚಪಾತಕ ಸತ್ಯವೆರಸಿದ ನ್ಯಾಯವದು ಲಿಂಗಾರ್ಚನೆ ಶ್ರುತಿ ಮತವಿದು ಇದು ಎನ್ನಾಜ್ಞೆ ನಿನ್ನಂತೆ ಸತ್ಯರೀಕ್ಷಿತಿಯೊಳಿನ್ನಾರುಂಟು ಹೇಳು ಎಂದು ಪಾರ್ವತೀಪತಿ ಹರಿಶ್ಚಂದ್ರನ ತಲೆದಡವಿ ಬೋಳೈಸಿ ಕೌಶಿಕಂಗಿಂತೆಂದಗೂ. We said earlier, classics open with the Nandi Shloka, invoking, with an invocation to God. They also end with a Palashruti. A Palashruti is usually sung in the Rag Madhyamavati, and it is, what is in it for you that you have now read the classic, read the story, what is in it for you as a reader? So it's a kind of a it's a kind of a blessing, right? On this earth, those who listen to the story of Harishchandra will be cleansed of sins from their past 7 lives. So you're going back much cleansed, okay? You can commit some more, read it again, and continue. Okay. So those who listen to the story of Harishchandra will be cleansed of sins from their past 7 lives, just as darkness is dispelled in the wake of sunrise. For as the Vedas declare, Hara is truth and truth Hara, and they are but one. Marvelous indeed is the story of Harishchandra that exemplifies what the Vedas have enunciated and brings home this eternal truth to all the 3 worlds. And in the Kannada, this is the verse. ಧರೆಯುಳು ಹರಿಶ್ಚಂದ್ರ ಚಾರಿತ್ರಮಂ ಕೇಳ್ದ ನರರು 7 ಜನ್ಮದಿಂ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದ ಪಾತಕವೋ ತರಣಿಯುದಯದ ಮುಂದೆ ನಿಂದ ತಿಮಿರದ ತೆರದಿ ಹರೆಯುತ್ತಿಹುದು ಏಕೆಂದರೆ ಹರನೆಂಬುದೇ ಸತ್ಯ ಸತ್ಯವೆಂಬುದೇ ಹರನು ಹರನೆಂಬುದೇ ಸತ್ಯ ಸತ್ಯವೆಂಬುದೇ ಹರನು ಎರಡಿಲ್ಲವೆಂದು ಶ್ರುತಿ ಸಾರುತ್ತಿರಲು ಆ ವಾಕ್ಯವ ಅರರೆ ನಿರುತವ ಮಾಡಿ ಮೋಜದಕ್ಕೆ ತೋರಿದ ಹರಿಶ್ಚಂದ್ರ ಕಥೆ ಕೇಳೊಡಿ questions are welcome. And in any language, please.
Questions would like you to sing those pieces that you skipped.
One question here.
One where you did better than.
Oh, that's
Even today, in the old villages and towns, people literally cry.
yes.
Literally cry. Though they have heard it a dozen times,
Yes. No, this
it's
is
like that
yeah.
when you are meeting with friends.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No, it is true that it's a very moving story. One might want to judge it as melodramatic, a little, too pat in so many ways, but that is a more modern kind of a sensibility. Within itself, it's all of a piece, you see. It's all of a piece, and therefore it holds together as a narrative. And it is moving. Thank you for that, saying that.
How many years was the exile?
The exile is actually only for 45 days because by then he had to, in one part of the story, he is asked to do a yaga, sacrifice. And Vishwamitra sends two munis, sages, to go to him and ask for gold. And he is doing Suvarna Yaga, Bahu Suvarna Yaga, which means anyone who comes to ask him anything, he has to give without refusing. That's the Yaga. So because he is doing that, these two sages come and say, give us a mound of gold. How high? How tall? If I were to stand on top of a huge mammoth elephant and flip a coin, how far it will go? It should be that high, the mound. So, therefore, he has to return that money, to make up for that. So he sells the wife, he sells himself, etc., etc. And that money had to be made good in 45 days. That was the deadline. That to add pressure to his life. Yeah.
Translate for Varshana.
Varshane, 3.5 years is what it took me, of about 8 to 10 hours a day. And I'm very grateful that, between Wipro and Infosys, they have paid back some part of their, what they owe to Kannada and Karnataka, I think, because I used to work I still am associated with Azim Premji University, and they considered this work as my work, my professional work, which is very rare, because only published papers are considered, as professional work, and all these are seen as dilettantism, you do things on the side business kind of thing. But here they respected that and considered it my professional work, for which I'm very grateful. So they paid for my time. And the Infosys Foundation, which gave this donation, sponsored this whole project called the Murthy Classical Library of India, which is producing translations of Indian literatures, from pre-modern times. So Harvard, they gave money, and Harvard is publishing this book. So between them, they have paid their debt to Kannada, I would like to think, for 3.5 years. Yeah.
It's remarkable because of people like this me who can just about understand the basic, not all this Kannada, and know very little about Kannada literature. It's pretty amazing, and it's opening up a world that we're not aware of. So
It's really true. Each of our...
I mean, we're really, I'm very grateful for that. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Who chose the ragas?
See, in the Gamaka tradition, the same verse can be sung in different ragas. But it's a finite set of ragas which evoke certain moods. If it's a sad moment, then you can sing it in Bhairavi, you can sing it in Todi, you can sing it in Pantalavarali, ragas like that. So it's up to you to choose which raga you want to set that verse in. Okay, but that list is finite, that number is finite. So if it is Veera, like how I said, the raga should be different, which is more like Kadana Kutuhala or things like that, Kamach, ragas like that. So in the tradition itself, it's kind of, there is a convention of which ragas for what. So
And the
within
invocation was in
Nata.
Nata.
Usually Nata is the Nata or Kamsadhani are the invocation ragas.
Yeah.
So it's usually sung to that ragas. Yes. And just as Madhyamavati is what you sing as a last benediction. Yes, sir.
Thank you for this excellent understanding. The question I had was generally about the concept of truth. I presume that Harishchandra stood for what I call the eternal truth. Sometimes in life you may have to speak what's called the white lie or the half-truth,
Yes.
not to make it inconvenient to people around.
Yeah.
In that sense, for a slightly greater good.
Yeah.
What is your understanding of what Harishchandra is?
There is a particular notion of truth that Harishchandra stands for in this narrative. I reminded you that Raghavanka wrote in the 13th century after Basavanna's movement, where truth itself got redefined as not some absolute truth given by God or anything, but through your nade and nudi. He says in a very famous Basavanna Vachana, Nudiyolagagi nadeyadiddare Kudala Sangama Deva Yentolivanaya. What does it mean? Will God accept you if you don't keep your word, if your action and word don't match? So truth has a very specific definition here, which comes out from there. And also, if there's a very famous folk tale in the Kannada context. It's called Govina Hadu. It's the story of Punyakoti, where a cow which is caught by a tiger, and the tiger is about to eat it up. The Punyakoti says, "Wait, I'll just go home and feed my little calf once and say goodbye and come back. Just give me half an hour, I'll come back." So first the tiger laughs. Who will do this? Who will want to come back to death? But Punyakoti says, "No, I will come back." So it goes, and then all of that. And the little calf says, "Amma, why should you go? Please don't go. I want you, I need you, I love you." But Punyakoti says, "A word given is a word given. You can't break it." ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಮಾತಿಗೆ ತಪ್ಪಲಾರೆನು, ಕೆಟ್ಟ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಲಾರೆನು, ನಿಷ್ಠೆಯಿಂದಲಿ ಪೋಪನಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಕಟ್ಟ ಕಡೆಗಿದು ಖಂಡಿತ. Okay, there's a stanza there in that song. So that is the notion of truth you have in this, and that is why he's trying to stick to his word. That is the notion, especially in this era of post-truth. Such notions sound so quaint and curious. So I say, let it be. At least there's one version of what is truth, even in this post-truth society. So that's it. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that there's one place where you felt you outdid Raghavanka. So can you take us back to that?
Shall we go back to this? Yeah.
Also, there are so many variations apparently on the story.
Yeah.
There are prequels to the story.
Yeah.
So could you tell us if there are any that are particularly significant? That Raghavanka changed certain things maybe?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, Raghavanka change, like the caste angle is very strong. It's almost a central question, which happens only in the Raghavanka text. It doesn't happen in other texts. So as a result of that, he invents these two Holati women who question the king. That is a innovation you don't have in any other texts. So that is to show how the local has really had a dominant impact in the recreation of the Harishchandra story or legend, different from the Sanskrit. And also in terms of the dramatic potential, I think he has beaten all other dramatists, the Sanskrit to place in this, by inventing this Shatpadi, which is from the tradition of what is called Hadugappa, that is the singing poetry that is song, not so much Odugappa, which is poetry to be read. This is he brought that tradition to create his masterpiece, and therefore it's a very unique kind of coming together of a new twist to the story with a new twist to the form. Message and medium have come together in a very unique way, which is, that's why I thought of this text. I said, when I take a text out of Kannada, it should not just be another recreation of a Ramayana or a Mahabharata story. It has to be a very Kannada take on the issue, on the story. And I found this was quite distinct, and that was the reason.
You've been true to the original.
Pardon me?
You've been true to the original in the translation?
That's a very vexed question about how true one has been, because you already saw. See, for instance, this particular one I'm going to, where I was bragging. So, see, this one, as I said, Shatpadi is look at the form itself. Shatpadi is a 6-line verse. Now, if I were really true to the original, I should have created them in 6-line verses. It would never have happened, right? So, because the meters of English and the rhythm of English does not allow for this, right? Therefore, and that too, these are books, translations meant for contemporary audiences, readers. And if I create something that is so archaic, as it is, nobody reads, not even this. So I have no illusions about that. But even if I recreate it in that, then it will be even more inaccessible. Okay? Therefore, one has tried to be a bit irreverent, I think, and try to recreate the spirit rather than the letter, I would say. This is a classic example of that. This is what I'm going to show you. So here is a description of how they danced, how the two women who came to entice Harishchandra danced. So in the Kannada, it is just a list of various moves, techniques, and various types of dances, various raga, all that. Gati, gamaka, gaha, gahike, tiruhu, chaleya, kunku, jati, joke, margavane, vahani, taraharike, kampita, humpu, babu, dokkara, vivara, kalasa, kammavane, lolankita, nutashuddha salanga sankirnamam, ಯಥೋಚಿತ ತಾರ ಮಧುರ ಮಂದ್ರಂಗಳಿಂ ಹಾಡಿ ಭೂಪತಿಯ ದುಗುಡವನ್ನು ತೊಳೆದರು ರಾಗರಸ ಲಹರಿಯಿಂದ ಅನಾಮಿಕ ಸತಿಯರು. So, all you have is a list here. How do I make a list? If I were to give meanings, gati, then the list would have been 10 pages after this. The footnote would have run to 10 pages. And then you would have completely lost the story by then. Right? You would have got lost in the detail. So, this is what we tried to do. Okay. The fetching anamikas washed away the king's melancholy with a mellifluous music. Rhythmic gati, keeping beat with percussive jati, embellished by lively Tiruvu Margavane and Vahani Gamakas, sung in soothing lower, middle and upper octaves. Sananga melody came alive, the lyric rendered with finesse in their pure mixed and composite tunes, complete with tremulous kampita. Their song was rendered the more enticing by their seductive dancing, charliya, tarahariki, bhav and nokkara, an alluring display of dexterous steps, enchanting stances, mesmerizing pirouettes, liquid movements of vivacious cheeks, eyes and lips, the ravishing breasts and sinuous figures. You are allowed to disagree with my claim. Because I spent 6 months on this, I think I've done better, but the product may not reflect the process. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, can I ask one more question? Since you referred to the brothel scene, could you say something about the brothel scene since we're sort of on the subject?
Yeah. Okay, the brothel scene. Let me just give you just one
The chapter 4.
yeah. This is just the description of what is a brothel. Don't go to the dictionary, here it is. Harishchandra headed toward the brothel, a den of erotica, dale of alluring beauty, fount of passion, courtyard of wiles, lair of lies, hearth of comfort, house of ministrations, hotbed of rivalries, habitat of hypocrisy, birthplace of cunning, living vault of money, and the very bosom of lust, where courtesans practiced their arts of sexual conquest. Right? That's one description. And let me just give a very specific one. So there are all these older women trying to take care of their younger wards and then saying, oh, my daughter, she's the most beautiful, and so on. Yet another woman bragged, my daughter does not sing lest the young cuckoo's song lose its appeal. She does not talk lest the parrot's speech lose its novelty. She does not sashay lest the young hamsa's glide lose its grace. She doesn't play unveiled in the courtyard lest the moon lose its luster. She doesn't uncover her hair lest the peacock lose its splendor, or open her eyes lest the lily lose its loveliness. Okay. Look at how coquettish that is. Huh? Yeah. And then just one more. Yeah. The king watched. With the night growing older, couples pursued pleasure where they could. In servants' quarters, in backyards, in cowsheds, among dark clump of trees, and behind walls, not sparing hill or dale, pit or incline, or hedge of thorns. Love talk, tender kisses, bated breath, whispered endearments, nail marks, love bites, making passionate love even with their clothes on. Okay. And there's only one of my favorite. Here is a woman, a young woman, who has been advised to keep away from her lover because he has no money, right? Where is this? So the young woman confessed. That is, I'm trying to avoid my lover. I resolved not to see him, but my eyes are bound to see. I resolve not to talk, but my tongue will talk. I resolve not to smile, but my face will smile. I resolve not to give in, but my body will respond ardently. I resolve to be angry, but my anger evaporates the moment I see him. If I declare I will not make love, would my raging senses let me be? What can I do? Okay? That's it. Thanks for your very, very interested and patient listening. It was a treat.
Thank you so much.
That was I think, quite a wonderful flight back about 700 years. And we're back to the present now. I think, thank you very much, Vanamala Vishwanatha, for that wonderful journey. And we look forward to having you back here one of these days. Because I think there's a lot more to be said and discussed on this wonderful classic that she's translated with so much patience and I think brilliantly done. Thank you very much, all of you, also for joining us this evening. Good night. Thanks.